The information provided in the Golden Nuggets health and wellness shows, including but not limited to advice, tips, and discussions on mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, is intended for general information purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional advice or treatment. The Golden Nuggets health and wellness shows are designed to inspire and inform, promoting a holistic approach to health for the mind, body, and soul. However, individual circumstances vary, and what works for one person may not be suitable for another. Before making any significant changes to your lifestyle, diet, exercise routine, or adopting new practices discussed on the show, it is strongly recommended that you consult with qualified healthcare professionals, nutritionists, or other relevant experts. They can provide personalized advice based on your specific needs, health status, and any existing medical conditions. The host, guest, and producers of the Golden Nuggets health and wellness shows do not assume responsibility for any consequences arising from the use or misuse of the information provided. Viewers and listeners are encouraged to use their discretion and take responsibility for their own health choices. By engaging with the Golden Nuggets health and wellness shows, you acknowledge that the content is not a substitute for professional advice and that you will seek the guidance of qualified professionals when needed. Thank you for being a part of the health and wellness community.
Welcome to Golden Nuggets Health and Wellness Show, a television program that's redefining self-care for the mind, body, and soul. My name is Dr. Elect Starr. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, health and wellness consultant, and your host for this show. Our mission is simple: to empower you with creative and innovative self-care strategies that help you prosper and be in good health even as your soul prospers. In our first segment entitled Compassion Fatigue, the Cost of Caring, we dive into the emotional and physical exhaustion experienced by helping professionals. We explore what compassion fatigue is, who's at risk, its signs and symptoms, and most importantly, the steps to address and prevent it. Today, our focus is teachers and compassion fatigue. But before we begin, allow me to introduce our esteemed guest. We have with us today teachers Ian Scott and teacher Michael Greene. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. And I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about you. And so we'll start with Ian.
Yeah, sure. So number one, I've been in the education field since 2016. So I've been teaching for quite a while. I've taught second grade, third grade, kind of all the way up to sixth grade. Outside of that, photographer, financial coach, and honestly, just whatever I can get my hands on. I'm always interested in just trying new things, especially if it's servicing people and helping other people. But I just keep my interest open in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But primarily right now, teacher, and then everything else just kind of comes as I see it.
Wow, sounds pretty innovating to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining us. And Michael, so good to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us about you.
Michael Greene. My middle name is Lamont, and all of my sons' middle names are Lamont, so to let you know that.
That's cool.
This little family tradition that we have down through the years. I am a current teacher. I've been teaching since 2014. And I started out a little different. I started in the in-school suspension room, and one of our townships, and that kind of got me my niche into teaching. And you know how we have to have a room for our precious students to go that may have a little stress that day. We kind of help them through that area. And I've been teaching since, and then I currently teach at Turning Point Schools under the leadership of Tim and Tanya Harris. And it is an honor to teach at such a great school where love is shown, and we teach, train, transform, and testify for our students.
That is beautiful.
Amen.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
For being here. And I appreciate both of you and the work that you do. And I don't think we can ever give you enough praise and appreciation for shaping and molding the lives of our future.
Amen.
So thank you for your time and commitment.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So we're today talking about compassion fatigue and our teachers. But perhaps someone out there is asking, well, what is compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue is just a gradual lessening of compassion for others and for self over time. And yes, teachers can experience compassion fatigue as well. It's the profound emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion that helping profession, including teachers, can develop over the course of their career as helpers. After all, think about it. Our teachers are helping students who have trauma in their lives, in their home, and they're having to support these traumatized students and their families. So yes, it can have an impact on our teachers as well. One of the things I want to share is that compassion fatigue can have detrimental effects on individuals, both professionally and personally. For example, it can cause a decrease in your productivity or cause absenteeism. It can also cause the inability to focus or the development of new feelings of incompetency and self-doubt. Those are just a few of the impacts of compassion fatigue. Well, who's at risk? You're probably going, well, can I experience compassion fatigue? Well, anyone, and I repeat, anyone in the helping profession is profoundly affected by the work that they do. Those who experience direct exposure also can be impacted by compassion fatigue, such as our firemen, our policemen, our paramedics. Also those who are working in a secondary position, they just have secondary exposure, not directly involved with the trauma, such as mental health therapists. They also support individuals who experience trauma, social workers, nurses, doctors, caregivers, clergy, clergy wives, and teachers are all potentially impacted by compassion fatigue. So what are the warning signs? Well, before we go any further, I want to stop and ask our guests for their personal experiences of compassion fatigue. We'll start this time with Michael. Michael, what has been your personal experience of compassion fatigue?
First, I didn't even know that there was a compassion fatigue name, but I'm sure I experienced it. Over the years, you deal with your own personal life and you deal with your students' lives, and they bring a myriad of different issues with them, and you have an array of students. So you have a lot of students who have a lot of issues, and you have your own set of issues that you carry with you. And I didn't understand that if I didn't feel like doing a lesson plan, or if I did not feel like coming in the next day, it could have just been, oh man. But not understanding that you've given so much of yourself.
Absolutely.
And now you're experiencing the fatigue, and it did not relate to me at that time. That's what that was. But I'm thankful that, God's given us His strength that you can continue to endure through those things. And I just would have to sit back and reflect, and then pray, and then listen to some music. And then that really allowed the Lord to minister to me so I can go back. So understanding that I was fatigued, understanding that I'd given so much, over time you understand that, okay, this is what it is. I'm feeling like this again. I must be tired again. So what do I need to do from that point? And understanding that your history is here to help guide you so you won't make those same mistakes. So.
And you're absolutely right. There are many out there who are experiencing those symptoms, but just not connecting the dots because they don't know what compassion fatigue is. So you may frame it something else, not understand that this is what's happening. It is a phenomenon, and knowledge is power, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Ian.
Yeah. So when I first heard of the term, uniquely enough, my students were doing vocabulary words, and one of the words happened to be fatigue. And so when I come across the terminology compassion fatigue, putting those words together, basically I'm tired of giving compassion. And so since 2016, at the beginning of my career, I was all excited, like, yes, I get to teach, and I'm going to change this person's life and this person's life. And quickly, it started to diminish. Quickly, I started to not have the enthusiasm, not have the fire and the passion of going and educating young minds. Now, mind you, I still like educating young minds,
Sure.
but it's now taking a toll on me to the degree where I almost compartmentalize it.
Wow.
And I kind of go on autopilot.
Yeah.
So sometimes I may not recognize it because I'm so used to going through the motions and doing what I'm doing that I kind of like, okay, this is just another thing. And kind of like you were saying about the not wanting to do the lesson plan, I think sometimes it's just my own desire not to do lesson plans. But a lot of it is just, I just don't feel like it if I have one more thing loaded onto my plate, even though it's for the betterment of these kids, I think I'm going to snap. And so is that decrease in caring is that, oh, this lackluster attitude of I'll get to it tomorrow, which tomorrow turns into next week and next week turns into next month. And it's just this constant procrastination. And it's a lot of things that you really don't recognize until somebody tells you to stop, be still. Here are the signs of what you're going through. And so for me, it's just been just kind of an ongoing thing that now I'm paying attention to it, now that I've reflected and thought, okay, wow, so me not caring was probably more so this compassion fatigue, this me at the beginning really excited and now really like I could care less what happens as long as I get them out alive, you know, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, then I'm good. And so for me, it's just really been an ongoing thing from the beginning of my career until now.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of information. You know, it's illuminating. It gives you understanding.
Absolutely.
And when you have the understanding, you know how to take better care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? If you
Absolutely.
know it's compassion fatigue,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So I need to do more relaxation, right? Like you said, find some soothing activities to engage in. And we're going to talk more about that later, so I don't want to jump ahead of myself, right, and get to the solutions. So I think what I want to do now, I want to move towards the warning signs, because that is important, recognizing those warning signs of compassion fatigue. And so you think of, I don't know if I'll have enough time to cover them all. We may need to come back to the break and continue, but feelings of helplessness and powerlessness in the face of patient suffering, in your case, students. Reduced feelings of empathy and sensitivity, as you mentioned, Ian, and feeling overwhelmed and exhausted by work demands. Feeling detached, numb, and emotionally disconnected. Loss of interest in activities, as you were sharing. And things that you used to enjoy, you can also lose interest in something like you said, you had the passion, right?
Right.
And then suddenly feel a decrease in that. Increased anxiety, sadness, anger, and irritability. These are danger signs, warning signs, danger signs, whatever you want to call them. But thank God we're clear on what some of these signs and symptoms are. Difficulty sleeping and sleep disturbances like nightmares. Physical symptoms such as headaches, nausea, upset stomach and dizziness, even increase in conflicts in personal relationships. You think about the symptoms, right? They can affect your relationships if you're angry or suffering with depression or anxiety. And then neglect of your own self-care. You become so overly involved in caring for others that you disconnect from your own needs. And finally, an increase in substance use. We see this also as a form of self-medication. Right. Those are just a few of the warning signs of compassion fatigue. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask our guests to share some specific instances or experiences that they, and I want you to be pretty clear about those particular symptoms that jump out at you, if any of these jump out at you, so that the folks in the audience will be able to relate with you and know that they're not alone, that there's nothing wrong with you. You're human, and you have a capacity to forgive. So when you have high capacity for compassion, you have a high risk for compassion fatigue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
So the more you care, the more you love, the more you live for people, the greater that risk of compassion fatigue. So we're going to come back and we're going to delve into that. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
That's perfect.
We'll be right back, so don't go away.
Dr. Starr, best-selling author of Golden Nuggets, Food for the Mind, Body, and Soul, is also a health and wellness speaker and consultant who provides motivational speaking, training conferences, and one-on-one coaching to improve the quality of life. She's passionate about helping people heal from the inside out. Dr. Starr provides creative and innovative self-care strategies that empower you to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Call or visit the Golden Nuggets website today. Feeling anxious? Perhaps you're dealing with a past trauma and don't know where to turn for help. Turn to Unlimited Possibilities. We provide a safe and caring space for individuals and families to help improve the quality of their lives. Whether you need help with spiritual matters, trauma, depression, and more, Unlimited Possibilities can help you overcome your situation with compassion, acceptance, respect, and empowerment. Unlimited Possibilities, where all things are possible if you believe. Call or visit our website today.
Welcome back to Golden Nuggets Health and Wellness Show, food for the mind, body, and soul. For those of you just tuning in, I'm Dr. Starr, licensed mental health counselor, health and wellness consultant, and your host for this show. We have been discussing compassion fatigue, the cost of caring. Our focus for today is teachers and compassion fatigue. And joining us today are teachers Ian Scott and Michael Greene. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you. We just wrapped up finishing talking about warning signs of compassion fatigue. And so now I want to ask my guest to describe some specific instances or experiences that made you realize you were dealing with compassion fatigue. Mm-hmm. And let's see, who we got? Let's do Ian.
Awesome. So as I said earlier, it's an ongoing thing. So sometimes we may not be able to realize specifically what's going on, but in my case, I have 2 little ones. And so oftentimes when I'm dealing with children for 8 hours a day, then I have more irritability when I come home. So imagine if I set a jar of marbles on your table, and each of these marbles are energy marbles. And so all day I'm giving out marbles to this person and to this person and to this kid and to this administrator. So by the time I get home, my energy is so low that now I'm more irritated by little small things that shouldn't irritate me. But I've been irritated just all throughout the day. I mean, from the moment I walk in the building, literally anything could happen. A kid could come in and they're not having the best of day. They woke up on the wrong side, and so I got to soothe them. And so a lot of times people don't really understand that teachers got to wear different hats. We got to be pastors, we got to be counselors, we got to be referees, we got to be almost everything. Whatever these children need, we have to be. And so by the time we get home, we're tanked. Our energy, our marbles are all given out, and we've not had much time in between to self-care, because I mean, we get 15 minutes maybe to go to the bathroom and maybe another 15 minutes to eat lunch. So it's not enough self-care in that time frame to refill our marbles. And so when I get home, and so as I heard you have children earlier, we don't have much energy for our children, and it's honestly, it's a disservice to them, and we're married as well. And so we have a disservice to our spouses and a disservice to our children, and things that normally we would have patience on. We don't have patience because we can't go off on the kids at school. So maybe we feel that at home is more of a safe haven, more of a safe space. So let me unintentionally go off on my children or unintentionally go off on my spouse, because this is where I'm safe, and this is where I can let, well, I don't have any hair, but this is where I can let my hair down, so to speak.
Wow, that's beautifully put. Very good, thank you. Michael.
Yeah, I agree that there is a lot to go into it when you leave your home with your children. I'm blessed to take my children with me to school, and when I go into our school, I drop them off and go to my office and get myself ready for the day. And I'm blessed to have that opportunity, so I don't have to have the stress of putting my kids in the hands of someone else to get to the place, to be in the hands of someone else. That's a blessing for me. But I do understand the aspect of still having to deal with the myriad here and then come home. So what I understood that I try to compartmentalize it and say this is here and this is here, but it don't always work all the time. Right. So I noticed that, you know, sometimes I bring things home, and my wife, she's just the blessing that God knew that I needed, and she will be able to soothe me. I remember coming home one time, a specific example, I was so upset that I could not reach some of my mentees, and God has allowed us to have a foundation where we want to pour back into young people. So unfortunately, I felt like that I did not do enough because I lost them, and that they were lost by gun violence. Oh, so when I lost these young men that looked like me, that came from the same background as me, and lost them to gun violence, I said, what did I do wrong? Did I not do enough? So I'm giving and still giving. So I was emotionally hurt by that, and I reached out to my then pastor, and I said, I'm just kind of hurt by that. And he gave me his, condolences. But what do you do after the condolences? What do you do after the mom calls and she's crying? She said, Mr. Greene, you did everything you can do. I'm like, well, at this particular point, maybe I didn't. So that in itself took me to a place where, I didn't stop though. I said, I gotta do more. I have to do more, so I still gave and I still put out. So I understood that coming home with my beautiful wife and my beautiful family, I try to put them first. Now, there are some times if they spill some milk or if they do something like that, or I slip on a toy, or, at my house it's funny. I reached a guy a spatula the other day and there was a balloon stuck to it. I don't know how you get a balloon stuck to a spatula, but that's the kind of house that I am. Maybe a button in the freezer, but something like that. But what I learned is take those experiences and say, okay, if I dial out and I look at that and I say, okay, it's the little things that I can look at. I can either be upset at that, or I can look at this and say, oh, my kids have things, they have toys, they have supplies, they have the things that they need to help them. So what I do is I try my best to say, God, I'm gonna lay on my face before you. I have all these things going on, but I'm gonna give it to you because you care for me, so I'm gonna cast it. The word talks about casting, you just aimlessly throw it. You don't have to pick where it's gonna go. So I cast all that on the Lord and allow God to take it, and he's given me the strength to keep going. And that's some specific instances to how I'm still in the education field to this day.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, both of you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. For those of you in the audience that may be just tuning in, I just want to do a quick recap on what we've been talking about. So we defined compassion fatigue. We also talked about those at risk, and we described those warning signs of compassion fatigue. I just wanted to kind of bring you up to date in case you're wondering, what's going on here? So what we want to do now, we want to talk about the steps to address and prevent compassion fatigue. We don't want to just talk about the problem, but we want to begin looking at a solution. So one of the things that is important in order to reduce those symptoms that we described earlier is creating a self-care plan. And I often tell my clients, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Having a self-care plan is so important, folks. Teachers, what do you think about the idea of having a self-care plan in place to reduce those symptoms of anxiety? When you think of plan, self-care plan.
Another plan? You can type up another plan?
That's what comes to your mind as a teacher, right?
Something else, right? No, I'm kidding.
I love your humor.
Go ahead. So
yes.
I'm the type of guy that if my wife allows me to have some time, I'll go, and I'll go to one of my favorite places to eat, and I'll sit down, and there won't be nobody there but me. And I'll take my ear pods and I'll pull up a scripture. I'll pull up the Word of God. I'll pull up a sermon could have been from Bishop Morris Golder, who I felt like was the greatest man to ever live from my home church. Or I pull up my now pastor, Pastor Harrison. He teaches us the Word of God. And what that does for me, it seals the deal that when I do things for God and do things for God, not as men pleasers or eye service, that to me gives me the strength to go forward, because we got a space of time when we're alive, when we're born, until we die. And what I do in that time in between that is paramount to me to make sure that I do God's will. I'm gonna be tired. I understand that. Athletes are tired. They run and they jump and they sprint and they carry balls and we watch them and they may be tired and they keep going and we just go, go, go. So for us teachers, it's almost the same thing, although it's not as glamorous as watching somebody, you know. But at the end of the day, if that's where God has me, I need to just push through and give God everything that he's given me to do, because I only have a certain amount of time to do it. Okay. So within that time, if I want to go sit down and get me some fried fish, have me some macaroni and cheese, sit down, give me some green beans, and an Arnold Palmer unsweet tea with the lemonade, I think that's okay with me for a little bit.
That's your self-care plan.
That's my self-care plan for some of it.
All right.
And a lot of times, if I may, like I said before, I lay on my face before God. Okay. I have to get some strength from God and some wisdom, strategy, and understanding how to go back into the field that he's called me to be in.
All right, very good. Ian, what do you have to say about self-care plan?
I think it's necessary. One of the things my dad has always taught me is that in order to help somebody else, you have to first be able to help yourself. Absolutely. And of course, me being 15 years old, I'm like, well, I can stand on one leg and still help them. So I'm always coming up with something to come back to. But now that I'm 33, I'm looking back at 15 years of wisdom. Well, not 15 years, he was older than that, but 15 years ago, my dad gave me this wisdom that you gotta be able to help yourself first to be able to help others. So I kind of give you that analogy again of the marbles, to where my self-care plan refills those marbles, whether it be taking a nap, which I love to do now. At first, as a child, we hated taking naps. Now I look for them. And so taking a nap, or it might be going to the gun range, or it might be going bowling, or it might be reading, whatever the case may be. So those plans in place helps refill my marbles, because I know that I have to give them out at some point. It literally could be right after my self-care plan, but I have to give those marbles out. So in order to give them out successfully, I got to keep replenishing them. And it could be, again, the Word of God. It could be just all these different things. And so having that plan in place helps you maintain and helps you push through and helps you get through the already laborious parts of your days.
Wow, very good. Thank you for sharing. Now, I know you agreed to come back to our next show and to talk in more detail about healthcare, a self-care plan, and those strategies. So today, we're just doing a quick overview of what it takes to address and prevent compassion fatigue. So creating a self-care plan is number one, and we're going to talk more in detail. Seeking support and counseling is number two. And then number three, setting boundaries to ensure your well-being while nurturing others effectively. So those are the three areas today that I wanted to touch upon. But before we end, I want to ask you, how do you balance the need to care for your students, maintain your own well-being? I know we've already talked, but just identify maybe one thing, because we have just a little time left, but one thing that you do to balance. What would your one thing be?
I think for me, again, it's that compartmentalization. So trying to separate work and home. So as Jerome would say, when you're at work, work, when you're at play, play. So just knowing where I am physically and mentally and trying to stay in that area until I have to cross over. So I'm working on not bringing work home as well as not bringing home at work. So kind of keeping everything in its place so that I'm not overwhelmed just all day with stuff.
All right. Few quick as possible. Time running out.
Give thanks, praise, and worship, and I always have to pray. Those things are really going to help, I know me, to go forth and do his will.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to you coming back and us talking a lot more about self-care strategy, self-care plan. Wow. Our time is gone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Ian and Michael, for being with us today. Stay tuned for the next show. We're looking forward to having you join us again. And until then, may you prosper, be in good health, even as your soul prospers. Bye for now.